Welcome everyone to this second round of thought leaders of this morning or evening or lunchtime, wherever you are listening in from. We are very fortunate to have Paul Sloane here today. We're really happy to have him and to talk a bit on the topics of recession. What's the hazard? What's the opportunities? And where's the innovation in it in the current situation? It's difficult to pick a few things about Paul to introduce, but I think the main topic is his books, and there was more than 20 of them. But lateral thinking is probably the one to point out in a ways. He does a lot of master classes with top corporations around the world, and of course he has visiting lectureships in Cambridge and in Mumbai and many other universities, and also has his original engineering degree. I'm sure that helps from Cambridge to have that as a first degree, really, and held many positions, multiple positions with software companies as well. So I think a great way to lead into this short, unfortunately only short thought leadership discussion, but we'll make sure that we have some time for questions as well. And please put them on the side. Use them in the Q&A function. Use the chat for individual chats to each other, but please only put the questions into the Q&A box, and I'll make sure to monitor them and to put them forward to Paul after the presentation. So Paul, the floor is yours.
Bruno,
thank you very much.
Thank you for that introduction, and good morning or good day, innovators, wherever you are, and thank you for joining us. So I've watched some of the sessions in this conference, very interesting. Many of them have been quite academic and technical and detailed. My presentation is at quite a high level, and it's aimed really at a business audience because I work mainly with business audiences and business leaders rather than academics or theoretical practitioners of innovation. And this is based on Zoom conferences that I've done and advice that I've given to business leaders. And it's really back to basics of innovation and the fundamentals that you should be thinking about. So we're in the middle of a crisis, as you know. Maybe we're just coming out of the worst of it. I'm sitting in the UK, and the UK has been very badly affected by the crisis, both at a level of health, that we've had 40,000 deaths or more related to COVID-19, and it's had a severe impact on the economy, and how long that will last, nobody knows, and what the long-term effects will be, nobody knows. But we're incurring massive government debts in order to keep companies afloat and to keep people paid, people who are on furlough, as it's called, working, sitting at home, being paid 80% of their wages. So this is a massive intervention never seen before by the government. So we're in uncharted waters completely here. And it's a challenge, and it's a challenge for business leaders. And what I say to business leaders is there are three things you should be thinking about right now, three major issues. The first is your people, and the second is your survival, and the third is your future. And these three are linked, and they're important. And many companies will not survive. Many businesses will not survive. The effect of the recession that we're seeing is very, very uneven. In just the same way that the effect of COVID-19 is very uneven, it's killing off older people and not younger people, and it's killing off more men than women. It's very discriminatory in many ways. And so is the recession. The recession is discriminatory. People in companies in hospitality, in hotels, in travel, in entertainment, in theaters, in restaurants are unlikely to survive. Whereas if you're making hand sanitizers or face masks or even freezers, I learned that freezers are being sold out because people are staying at home, they want more freezers. Printer ink, you can't get printer ink for love nor money because people are sitting at home printing out their children's homework assignments. So some businesses are booming and many have a threat to their survival. Let's start with your people, and your people, your team, typically they are anxious. They're anxious about their family, they're anxious about their health, they're anxious about their children, their education, they're anxious about their income, they're anxious about their future employment. And it's a time for you as the leader to show leadership, to step up And you do this through communication. You do it through showing empathy, support, a positive attitude, a positive outlook. And you've got to step up and show leadership now. And even if they're working from home, you have to communicate with each of them and show sympathy for their particular problems and be very flexible in your approach. So your communication skills are really going to be tested. And you may have to make some hard choices. You may have to let go some people. And in my experience as a CEO, as a managing director, if you do have to make a cut, it's better to cut hard and cut once than to make multiple small cuts, which is very, very damaging for morale. So make sure you keep your very best people, but you may have to thin out the ranks because of the effect of the recession. Your survival, I'm not going to say much on this other than to say if your business is under threat because of the recession, then there are three things you have to think about. And they are cash flow, and cash flow. Those are really the only things that really matter, is how much cash you can bring into the business. And you're probably an expert on this already. You know about this. You have to look at all the cash coming in, see if you can increase it in any way, bring forward payments, get deposits, and you have to minimize the cash going out. And there are opportunities, lots of ways of doing this. I'm not going to dwell on this. So let's talk about the future. And the future is uncertain. And if anyone tells you they know what the future looks like, then they're wrong, because no one can be sure what the future looks like. You certainly don't, your team don't, and this is leading to tremendous uncertainty and anxiety. So how do you navigate your survival and your innovation and your future if you don't know what it looks like? And the way you do this, I'm recommending to you, is you go back to basics and you ask some basic questions. And the big question for many businesses is, do we pivot? Do we carry on in the direction we've been going, doing what we're good at and what we know, or do we move into something entirely different? And the guy from Coca-Cola Japan, Florian, was saying they've started making alcohol hand sanitizers in Japan for the first time ever. But in that sense, they have pivoted and they've used the opportunity. But for many companies, the choice to pivot is existential. If they don't pivot, they will die. So to give a very mundane example, my business as a speaker and someone who leads workshops all around the world with major corporates, that has completely stopped. Nobody wants me to go and speak at a conference. Nobody wants me to go and run a workshop. That's all completely stopped. So I have had to pivot, and I'm now focused on online courses. And I do some excellent online courses in lateral thinking and innovation and problem analysis and other things. So I've focused on that. And in that sense, it's a complete change of direction. And I have to learn new skills entirely about video production and the marketing of online courses. So what I recommend you do is you get your team together, either in person or more likely by Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Hangouts, and you ask some very basic questions. And these are the sorts of questions I think you should be asking. And the first is right back to the basic. What is the problem that we solve for customers? What is it that we do which is of value to customers? It's not a question of what service we provide, it's a question of what problem we solve. What job do we do? The chairman of Black & Decker once famously said, people don't go in to a DIY store because they need one of our drills. They go in because they need a hole in the wall. And it's creating the hole in the wall. That's the problem which Black & Decker are solving for the customer. And you have to think very basically about what problem do we solve for customers, and will they still have that problem, or will they have a new problem? In what new ways could this problem be solved going forward? In a low-touch economy, in a different environment, in a direct-to-consumer environment, in what new ways could the problem that we solve be solved? And this is a very basic innovation question, which should give you some insights if you get the right team together and give them the opportunity to think about this. What new problems will our customers have? The problems that you solve for your customers in 2019 are going to be different in 2020, 2021. The customers will have new problems, new issues. And if you're not solving their problems, you will cease to exist. It's as simple as that. Your survival as an organization depends upon your ability to solve relevant problems for your customers. So anticipating what new problems customers will have is important. And one hint to this is to ask them, and we'll talk about this in a moment. Here's a really good question to ask, and it's a good innovation question at any time, but in this environment, it's particularly pertinent, particularly relevant. What big assumption are we making about our business which might no longer be true? And if we look at great companies that failed, like Encyclopedia Britannica or Kodak or Nokia, they all made assumptions. All businesses were built on assumptions which proved to be no longer true. All of the assumptions which underpin your business about how customers will pay for services or solutions or products and what problems you solve might just no longer be true going forward. And if you challenge that, it will shake your thinking. And a good way to do this is to list all of the assumptions that you make and say, what if the opposite were true? What if there was an entirely different approach? And there are many examples of this, and I give some of them in my blogs and conference talks. What entirely new product or service could we bring to market? And this is going back to Coca-Cola and the alcohol hand sanitizer is a good example of them switching to an entirely new product or service they'd never produced before. They produced drinks and Coca-Cola and tea and coffee and Fanta and all these things, but hand sanitizer is an entirely new product, and it's about seizing an opportunity. And what you do there is you go back and you say, what core skills do we have? What market penetration do we have? What are our strengths? And how could we deploy these strengths in an entirely different way? It's a really good question to ask, and we'll throw out ideas for innovations. So based on strengths and based on market, so typically most innovations come from solving customer problems, and the secondary source is technologies looking for solutions. So if you've got some cool technology, then you look for an application for it. But the primary source of innovation, good innovation ideas, it remains customer problems. And then a really good question is, you think about your business and you say, if a new company entering the market with money and resources, but no legacy, no installed base, no customers to worry about, how would they solve the customers' problems with an entirely new approach, with new technologies and a new route to market? If we were fired from our company today and we were forced to set up a new company and we had backing, financial backing, what would we do that's cool and different? So it's like being in a taxi company and then conceiving of Uber, or being in the hotel business and conceiving Airbnb. It's trying to conceive an entirely new way to solve customers' problems using new technologies and a new route to market, but we're starting with a blank sheet of paper. And that's another good question to ask. So these are the sorts of things I think you should be asking in order to understand the basis for innovations and future growth. Who should you ask to your meeting? Well, obviously, all your stakeholders, I would say, and not just employees, but obviously employees are really important. And it's important for you as the leader to say, I don't know the answers. I'm optimistic about the future. I've got a vision of where we're headed, broadly speaking, but I don't know exactly how we're going to get there. And I need your help and your innovations, and I'm going to empower you to try things to get there. And at a leadership level, this is really important. So your employees are the first port of call. Typically, they are in touch with customers. They're seeing customer problems. They're experiencing things, and they've got your best people have got lots of really good ideas. And they may have been inhibited up till now. They may have been too busy to really try them. But now is the time. They're at home. Maybe the business level is down. Maybe now is a good time to try new ideas, to experiment, to prototype. So your employees are the first point you should ask. But you should also be asking customers, And among your customer base, there are some really cool people who are innovators, who like new technologies, who are risk takers. Many of your customers are very conservative and they don't like change. But there are some who are eager to change and are trying new things. And you should be in touch with those. Maybe you've got a customer advisory board, maybe you speak to them individually, or you involve them in your brainstorm session. I've run brainstorm sessions with clients where we've had employees in the room and a customer in the room. And the customer was very, very useful in terms of contributing ideas and validating which new product ideas were potentially good and which weren't. So you should involve your customers, you should be speaking to them, and you should be discussing how they see the future and how their behaviors will change and what new problems they will have and what they're looking for from you or your competitors in terms of support and services. You should ask your suppliers. You're going to collaborate with them. You may be asking them for better terms. You may be asking them to delay payment because of the difficulties. They're in the same boat with you. They need you to survive. If you're Coca-Cola and you're moving from plastic bottles to recyclable bottles, working with your suppliers is really, really important. And you should involve them as well in terms of your discussions about the innovation and opportunities. And competitors, and when I say competitors, I don't mean just Coca-Cola looking at Pepsi-Cola, though obviously they do that very, very carefully. What I mean is anyone else in your industry. So if you are a theatre in London, which is closed today, you should be speaking to theatres in New York who are not your direct competitors, but are in the same thing and saying, how are you going to handle this? What are your plans for next year? What ideas have you got for coming out? And share some thoughts and trends with people who are in the same field as you, but maybe not direct competitors. Maybe they're in a different country or different city, but they share your problems. And very often you can share ideas with them and get input and maybe even try some new initiatives. So you should be asking a lot of questions right now as the leader. And that's my main message. Just a couple of messages on recessions. We're in recession. Recessions can be good. They can be good for innovation. They can be very good for startups for these reasons. Often your competitors stop marketing. They hunker down. Good people are available to hire. Previously, it was really difficult to get good quality people. Now there's lots of them. Premises are cheap. If anyone wants premises, if you want office space, you can get it dirt cheap. But even retail premises are incredibly cheap. Companies are cheap. If you've got cash, you can buy up other companies. You can ask for discounts on just about everything. And the key thing to remember is people keep buying. Even if the market's down 20%, it means 8 out of 10 people are still buying. So it's wrong to think that everything stops. Though obviously if you're in the restaurant business today, or the theatre business, or the cinema business, everything has stopped temporarily. But generally speaking, people keep buying. And that means recessions are challenging, and that means the agile, the innovative will succeed. And this is a famous list of companies founded during recessions, GEC, General Motors, all the way down to most recently Uber, Airbnb. And recessions generally are a great place for new business ideas to start. Okay, those are the 3 issues that, just to go back, your people, focus on your people, look after them, communicate with them. Your survival, your first job is to make sure the company survives. You've got no future, no innovation if you don't survive. So focus on survival. Look at all the government grants you can get. And then think about your future by going back to very, very basic questions and by involving your employees and your customers and other stakeholders. So that is my main presentation. That's my email address there if you want to email me, psloane@destination-innovation.com. And destination-innovation.com is my website. And you can go there and you can see my online courses and my blogs and resources. So if you have any follow-up that you want to discuss in private, I'd be very happy to hear from you and to link on LinkedIn. And I'm also very active on Twitter. So I think that's my 20 minutes just done almost perfectly, Bruno.
You did.
I'm ready to take questions.
Spot on. Thank you so much, Paul. That was great insight to have and food for thought, of course. Happy to have the people put them in the Q&A. There was one thing I forgot to mention actually in the beginning, that you had a TED talk also that's
Yes.
available.
I've done 2 TED Talks. I did a TED Talk in French in March in Beauvais, which was a big challenge.
What was that about? Which topic?
Les avantages d'être scandaleux. It was about the benefits of being outrageous.
Yeah. Okay. And the first one, I forgot the title.
Are you open-minded? There's the first
yeah, that's
one.
right.
That's had 80,000 hits on YouTube, so I'm very pleased with that.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, for the how are you going with because you said you had to change yourself dramatically also in your own business. Could you just refer quickly on the ways, how did it trigger, what triggered, and what were your first thoughts about, as you said, I'm not going to be on a plane until the end of the year, and how am I going to go about business? Maybe from your own perspective, looking at the 3 things that you put forward.
Well, yeah. So I ran a workshop for a company last year. It's a series of small businesses in the north of England, and we did an exercise where everyone has to recommend new innovation ideas for other businesses, and you get strangers or people that don't know your business very well saying what you should go into and new markets. And somebody said to me, "You should go into online courses," and I thought, yeah, maybe I should. So I tried it, and it was a complete learning experience for me, and I did a number of things wrong. Because you shouldn't just sit down and write a course based on your expertise. The first thing you should do is you should survey your customers to see what big problems they have that you can solve. So I got that wrong to start with. So I had to go a few times around. And then I had to learn that writing the course is one skill, which takes time. But the good thing is you can do it over and over again. You can take as many videos as you need and you can replace a lecture with a better lecture. But marketing it is something entirely different. And I had to learn all about how to market it. And just putting the course out there is not really enough. You have to engage with people. You have to have a multi-stage process where you give them something free, such as a video or something, and bring them on one step at a time. And eventually they might buy your course. And I found that the best people to sell my courses to were my old customers who I went back to. So I've learned a lot, and I'm enjoying it. And I'm making a few sales, some worthwhile sales every month. But it hasn't compensated for my speaking and workshop business, but a very interesting experience nonetheless.
Great. We do have questions come in, and one of them is, what is the most common question to forget from the list of 6 questions that you put forward? So what in your opinion, is the one that is most easily forgotten to address?
That's a good question. And it's right back to what problem do we solve for customers, I think. We make assumptions about customers, and we make assumptions about what they do, and very often they're wrong, and customers change, and you need to keep going out there and asking them, why is it that you buy our product, and what is it that you do with it? And a good way to do this is to observe customers and observe how customers use your products rather than just ask them. Because asking is good, but observing is even better. So ethnographic studies are very, very good. But of course, that's difficult now. Mm-hmm. So all of those questions, I mean, what assumptions are we making which might no longer be true is a really important question.
And the next, there's a couple of coming in at the moment. One is, thanks for the talk, and how can employees themselves trigger those changes and innovate their company from within, which is, the change agents within the company? What would the ideal way to support and empower these kind of employees be?
Well, it's a good question, and it's a question I've had many times on my workshops. And the answer is, it's hard to change the culture of an organization. The guy at the top can do it. It's almost impossible to do it from the middle or the bottom of the company. So if the organization you work for is not innovative, it's not creative, it does not empower, it tells you what to do, it's get on with it and do it my way, then your chances of getting innovation accepted or your ideas accepted is very, very slim. I did write a very popular blog, How to Be Innovative When Your Boss Isn't. and it's all and it's all about ways of selling your ideas to your boss, and there are some good ideas in there about how to do it. But ultimately, if you're frustrated and you can't get innovation through, you have to leave and work somewhere else. If you're at the top, if you're a leader of an organization, then you can change the culture. You can empower people. You can get employees engaged. And the way to do that is to trust them and to challenge them and to say to every employee, you've got two jobs. One is to do your current job, and the other is to find an entirely new way to do it. And the people I want to see promoted and the people I will recognize in appraisals are the ones who've championed initiatives and changed things and developed new things and tried things. And even if you fail, that's okay. So one of my sayings is, I have a number of sayings, and one of them is the motto of the innovative leader is this: we celebrate success, we learn from failure, and we punish inaction. So that if you try something and it works, you make a big fuss about it. If you try something it doesn't work, you'll try and learn a lesson, you share it. And the guy you come down hard on is the guy who sat on a problem for 6 months and done nothing. That's the thing that's inexcusable. So once the message gets out that people can try things, and you have to give them some space and time. You don't get innovation for free. But what you say is, Wednesday afternoon next week, you can try anything you want. I want you to prototype. I want you to experiment with new ways of doing things. And most people will respond to that. All your best people will respond, and they'll say, here's something I've been waiting to try for a long time. And they may need collaboration. They may need help from a technical department or from IT or someone else to develop a new screen, to develop a new app. And you've got to give them some funds, some small amounts of money. And it goes back to the concept of the minimum viable product. What can you prototype? What can you try quickly? Mm-hmm. What can you test with customers to see if this concept, the hypothesis under which this concept is built, how can we test that? So it can be done, but it's very hard to initiate from the middle. Innovation and leadership live in the same house. So if the leader is an innovator, that's fine. If the leader is not an innovator and doesn't really believe in it, then it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. We have a couple more and a few more minutes, so let's see what we can manage. One is how much time does a company have to do the analysis, conception and implementation? And it says, I find it hard to imagine when the original customers have completely disappeared and I have to approach a completely new market. So what's the time to market, basically? And then a linked one is probably, not just, is it enough to ask your stakeholders? Is it not enough to ask the stakeholders to involve in new products and services and to co-create?
It's not enough. What does that mean?
Do you think that it's not enough to ask your stakeholders? Instead, do we involve them in our products?
Oh yeah, we involve stakeholders, and we say we're open to ideas and we want ideas. And board members, non-executive directors, allies of the company, investors, they're all stakeholders. The local authority is a stakeholder. Anyone who's got a stake in the business is worth involving. In terms of time to test the ideas, it depends how much time you've got. If you're going bust, if you're running out of cash, then time is very limited to try new things. And you may only get one shot at it. But generally speaking, you test the concept very, very quickly with a minimum viable product. You show it to some customers. If they say, yeah, that's a great idea, we go for that, which typically they don't do, by the way. But if they did, then you can raise finance. Then you can go and ask for support. Then you can ask for a loan from the bank. Then you can survive long enough to develop that and try it. Typically, when you take the minimum viable product to the customer, what they say is, well, we like this, but we don't like that. You've got that completely wrong. And that's the value of it, that you learn very, very quickly. The purpose of your prototype is not fast payback, it's fast feedback. So what you're looking for is very quick information, and you show them a sketch, you show them a model, you show them a video of what the future looks like, and you say, would you buy this? Would you pay money for this solution? And that is the acid test. And if you can do that quickly, then you've got a chance.
All right. As I said before, there is LinkedIn, there is blogs, there is the messenger function on the conference app. There's all the other social media channels to be in touch with you, to I ask the audience to take your questions forward because we are in the last minute of our thought leader session. Back to you again, Paul. Thanks very much. Virtual clap from everyone that you cannot see around, but it was quite a large audience. Thank you so much, and thanks for being a good sport and answering questions and be upfront with it.
Thank you, Bruno. And
you.
please get in touch if you've got any other questions. Email me or link with me on LinkedIn.
Thanks, everybody.